Please, no more pain. Those were the words that echoed in the hollow dusk as the wind crawled across the Wyoming plains, brushing against the broken girl stumbling alone through the dying light, her breath sharp and thin like glass slicing the back of her throat. Mara had not spoken a full sentence in days, only fragments, whispers of hurt, fragments of memory she couldn't bear to keep but couldn't make herself forget. Her clothes were torn, her hands scraped raw, and her eyes hollowed out for nights that felt like years. Everything ahead of her swayed in a haze, fence posts, distant barns, the silhouette of a horse, grazing beneath the orange sky, and she kept moving because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, and remembering meant drowning in the voice of the man she had escaped, or thought she had. She didn't know where she was anymore, and that small uncertain hope was the only thing keeping her legs from collapsing beneath her. She didn't notice the cowboy watching from the porch of the old ranch house until she fell, until her knees gave out and the dust shuddered beneath her. And even then she barely noticed the quick, heavy footsteps rushing toward her, or the warmth of calloused hands lifting her from the earth as though she weighed nothing. All she felt was the trembling in her chest and the crushing fear that any touch, any hand meant danger. But his voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't anything like the devil she had run from. Easy, darlin'. You're safe now. Safe. The word shattered something inside her, something she had held tightly for too long. And tears she didn't know she still had burned hot down her face as she tried to speak, but her throat seized, choking off the sound. No more hurt, she finally whispered, because men like him didn't leave broken things on the side of the road. He fixed fences, he healed horses, and now, whether he wanted to or not, he would tend to her too. He lifted her gently, carried her toward the porch light flickering behind him, and for a moment the world seemed still. But the devil doesn't let his escapees go easily, and the cowboy didn't yet know that by taking her into his arms, he had stepped into a darkness that would test every inch of courage he had left. He brought her inside his cabin, the scent of cedarwood and old leather wrapping around her like a blanket. But even warmth felt frightening after the cold she had lived in. He set her down carefully on the worn couch, grabbed a blanket, and draped it over her shoulders with the gentleness of a man who had seen wounded animals bolt when touched too quickly. Her eyes kept darting toward the windows, toward the door, toward the shadows in the corners of the room, as if monsters lived in all of them, and maybe they did, because trauma doesn't leave quietly. It lingers like smoke in the lungs. I'm Cole, he said quietly as he lit a lantern. Its glow soft and golden. I run this ranch. What's your name? She hesitated, as though giving her name might summon the evil she had escaped. But then, barely above a breath, Mara. The way she said it was as if she wasn't sure she still existed. And Cole's jaw tightened in a silent vow that he would help her find herself again. She tried to sit up straighter, to look stronger than she felt, but her body betrayed her, trembling like she had walked through fire. Cole noticed. When's the last time you ate? He asked. Mara shook her head, not because she didn't know, but because remembering meant going back, and back was a place she couldn't survive twice. He didn't push. Instead, he brought her a bowl of warm stew, placing it in her hands with slow, deliberate movements so she would never once feel cornered. The first bite hit her like a revelation, like she was tasting something she thought she had lost forever: safety. Tears welled up again, unbidden, and she turned her face away in shame. But Cole didn't comment. He simply sat across from her, elbows on his knees, watching her the same way a man watches a storm, carefully, respectfully, knowing at any moment it could either fade or strike. Who hurt you? Mara's breath hitched. The question alone was enough to make the room shrink around her. Her hands tightened around the bowl, knuckles whitening. He's not human, she whispered. He's the devil wearing a man's skin. Cole didn't laugh, didn't dismiss it as fear talking. He had known evil men before, men who drank cruelty like water and looked at other people as prey, men who thought pain was theirs to give. Mara's voice trembled as she continued. He said he'd never stop, that even if I ran to the edge of the world, he'd find me. Her eyes lifted to Cole's, desperate and hollow. And he will. Cole leaned forward then, his voice low and certain. Not while you're here. Something in Mara broke again, but this time, not from fear, From relief. From the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. The wind outside howled like a warning. The horses in the corral began pacing nervously, their hooves thudding against the dirt in restless rhythm. Cole's brows knitted. Animals didn't spook for no reason, especially not his. He stood, walked to the window, and scanned the darkening fields. Nothing but an ocean of grass swaying under the moon. Yet something felt wrong, heavy, watching. "Cole?" Mara asked, her voice small. He forced a calm tone. "Just checking on the horses." He didn't want to frighten her with his own unease, but deep inside, instinct whispered that danger was already on its way. Mara curled tighter into the blanket, her eyes drifting toward the fire crackling softly in the hearth. The light soothed her for a moment, almost lulling her into something like peace. And then a sound, a distant engine rumbling in the night. Cole stiffened. No one drove this road at this hour. No one came out this far unless they were lost, or looking for something. Mara's breath froze in her chest. The bowl slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. "He found me," she whispered, her voice turning to ash. Cole grabbed his rifle from above the door, loading it with the steady hands of a man who feared nothing except the thought of losing someone who needed him. "Stay behind me," he said. The headlights approached slowly, crawling along the dirt road like eyes of a predator in the dark. Mara pressed her back to the wall, every muscle in her body trembling. Cole stepped outside, boots heavy on the porch, the cold night clinging to him like armor. The truck rolled to a stop 20 yards away. The engine cut. Silence fell like a blade. A man stepped out tall, to still. The kind of stillness that belongs to snakes and nightmares. Cole kept the rifle raised. "Can I help you?" he called out. The stranger smiled, but it wasn't a human smile. It was something sharpened on cruelty. "You got something of mine," he said. Mara's breath cracked in her throat. Cole didn't turn, didn't lower the gun. "You best be real careful with your next words," he warned. The man took one slow step forward. "The girl. Nobody belongs to you," he growled. The stranger's eyes glinted with a darkness cold enough to freeze bone. "Oh, Cowboy, you got no idea who you're protecting her from." Cole didn't flinch. "I don't need to. All I need to know is you hurt her." The stranger laughed softly, a sound that made even the night shiver. "You're standing between me and what's mine. That means you're already dead." Cole didn't wait. He aimed. The night held its breath. Mara, watching from inside, felt the world tilt the moment that would decide everything. And just as Cole steadied his finger on the trigger, the stranger whispered, "She can't escape the devil." The wind howled. The darkness tightened around them. And Chapter 1 ended not with a gunshot, but with the promise of a war neither of them were ready for.